Hello, this is Pat Soper with Sockeye Consulting. And in this session, I'd like to discuss with you setting up pay groups in Sage Intacct payroll. Pay groups are required for each employee, and pay groups simply define the number of pay periods that we have in a year. Monthly, 12 pay periods, weekly, 52 pay periods, as well as a couple of other options. Within the pay groups, we define what our period end date and what our check date is. Let's get into the software and take a look. Okay, I have my Sage Intacct open here, be our first step. And in our menu, we're going to be applications, payroll, and we'll be looking at pay groups today. And if we look at the pay groups currently, I do not have any pay groups set up. I can import a pay group, or I can create a new pay group manually. Today, we'll be discussing importing, as that's the easiest way to get the pay groups in the system. Now, in the Sage Intacct Payroll Help, there is an extensive section on pay groups, adding and updating those pay groups. And it also refers to an import for the pay groups. If we open up that link for the import file for the pay groups, we actually find a template that we can use to create the import records to bring those in. An example of what that Excel file might look like would be something like this. I have my pay group identifiers, in this case, weekly hour, how many pay periods, what the payroll year is, what period number, what payroll number, in other words, we've got here, as well as the period end date and a check date. So in this template, I have weekly hourly. I also have weekly salary. And then I also have a biweekly, a 26 pay period pay group in here as well. So we'll be actually importing this template into Sage Intacct Payroll. Let's take a look at how that's done. Let's come back here to our pay groups. Now, I can access the import in two ways. If I'm already in the pay group setup, I have a button here that says import, where I can actually import that template. Or if I'm not in pay group setup, I can certainly come into payroll, imports, and then this lists all the records that I can import, including my pay group records. Since we're here, let's initiate the import from right here. So pay groups, I'm going to import rows. Now, I also have the ability to enter manually right here, but I can also upload data from the data file. Once I say import data, I'm going to browse out to where my Excel file is with my pay group data. Open that up. The system will verify it. It will load the sheet. I only have one worksheet in this workbook called pay groups. So I'm going to say continue. And what we do on this screen is basically match up the fields in the Excel sheet with the fields that Sage Intacct Payroll is expecting. I've already done that in previous imports, so my mapping is confirmed. And you can see that we're just matching up a column title in Excel with a field name in Intacct. Let's go ahead and review. Here's what it is. The Excel sheet looks like when it's brought into Intacct Payroll. If I have any problems, I can filter that and show only rows with problems, or show any rows that I've made modifications to. All of those are fine, so we're going to go ahead and say continue. And we're ready to submit this, so we're going to say yes. And we're going to now save the records. Tells me 3 pay groups have been added. Say OK. And now let's go to payroll, pay groups. And we'll see the 3 pay groups now that weren't there previously. They've been brought into the import. Let's take a look at one of those pay groups. So let's look at weekly hourly. And here's my payroll year 2022, which is what I imported. Let's expand that out. And I'm going to see each of my pay periods. Now, one of the reasons this is important is I want to review my check dates, especially in light of direct deposits and bank holidays. For instance, if I come down and look at 11/24, I know that that happens to be Thanksgiving Day. Banks are closed. Direct deposits would not process through. So what I might want to do here is make a modification to that date and change that to 11/23. Once I have that change completed, I can go ahead and say save. It tells me I've made that change. Let's go back here. Now, in years following 2022, I can certainly import records again to set up that year, but I can also add another year here. If we look at 2022, we see that the last period end in 2022 is 12/24. So it'd follow that the first pay period in 2023 would be 12/31, 7 days after 12/24, since this is a weekly payroll. So if we want to add a year, we have a button here. We can select the year that we want to add, 2023. It picked up from the 2022 table what should be the first end date in 2023. So we simply accept the information, add the year, and move forward. So any other dates that we need to modify, we can come into each one of the pay groups, modify those check dates for bank holidays, for instance. Important takeaways here are, remember, each employee needs to be assigned to a pay group, and we can have several pay groups for different pay periods, lengths of periods. For instance, you may pay field employees weekly, but office employees bi-weekly. We can certainly handle that here with the pay group setup. Hope you found this helpful, and we'll be talking soon. Thank you.